I used to think entrepreneurship was the same mindset that I had with my sales job of selling another person's product and like decentering myself altogether. I used to think that that was the mentality that I needed to approach entrepreneurship. And turns out that it was a complete opposite. It was like when I'm the product, it's my story. And uh, to me, what shifted things for me was actually going through like a formal brand strategy process.
Camila, welcome to the Say Hola podcast. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good. I'm excited to be here. I love podcasting and talking and connecting, so I'm happy to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So I wanted to bring you to the podcast to talk about all things branding and photography because that's something that you do, something that you're very passionate about. I personally admire the work that you do, and I'm always looking on your social media like, what is she doing now? Because it's just so refreshed, and I love that. But before we get there, I want to give you the option or the opportunity to introduce yourself and just share us a little bit about your background and how did you ended up becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a brand photographer and videographer for mission-led entrepreneurs, people that are really leading in a heart-led way, not just wanting to make money and set up systems, but they're really putting their story out there. And I'm on a mission to make as those leaders visible as much as possible, and especially people that come from non-traditional backgrounds. And yeah, and then as for it's that my brand is also inspired by my own story of me becoming visible, especially as a photographer and an artist that we're so used to our work speaking for ourselves. So this is where I decided I'm going to lead with my story and my brand. And that's what skyrocketed my business and transformed it completely. So I like to pass on this knowledge to other founders and other leaders who are not used to being in the spotlight and them being in the spotlight.
For the listeners and the people that are watching on YouTube, what is your story? So can you walk us through the story?
Yeah. So I my story is kind of a little bit elongated, but I started taking photos when I was about 16 or so. And to me, it was just fun. It was never meant to be a career. It was just me wanting to have cute photos of my family. And it's not until I was like about in college that one of my friends I started teaching him how to also like take photos in the way that I was taking them. And what's interesting is that I was already building a brand back then by posting my images on Instagram and they were getting reshared. But something that he was doing is sharing images that he was taking of objects like backpacks, water bottles, shoes, anything, and he would send it over to the brand just to build a relationship with them. But he started getting traction with paid jobs and also growing his audience. And I was like, well, if he can do that, I can do the same. And I started doing the same. I reached out to so many brands and I would just capture images and I would send it over. And I said, you can use these for whatever you want. Cause I just wanted to get my foot in the door. And so I was able to get some traction and grow my audience. And this was back in like 2013, 14, 15, but my mindset wasn't there. My identity, my mentality. I also was just leading with posting my work and it worked, but I wasn't getting aligned clients such as I was barely working with any like Latinos or people from my community. I was barely storytelling. I didn't do video at the time. I was also shooting a lot of weddings and working on the weekends. And I also wasn't making the money that I wanted to be making. So all of that was a result of me being visible. I mean, me not being visible and not leading with my authenticity and not having the identity of the person that can hold it. So my business actually, I wasn't able to sustain it. So I slowed my business down in like 2016 or so. And from 2016 to about 2022, all those years, I actually went and got a corporate sales job. And my dream was always to be an entrepreneur because I had tasted what entrepreneurship felt like from an early age. I just didn't have the coaching or like, I also didn't even know that there were Latina coaches out there. Like I knew nothing. I wasn't connected to my identity as a Latina or like a first gen Colombian that was raised in Salt Lake. And so all those years, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get a job. And I just got a sales job that was very low commitment. And I was like, I just need money to get like my adult stuff together, like a 401k and pay off my debt and like start investing and fix my credit and just have money. And live by myself. I just needed to organize those things. And that's what I did. I did that from like 2016 all the way until 2022. And in the midst of all of that, I moved from Salt Lake to Arizona. And when I moved to Arizona is when I met my now business partner, who was my boyfriend, but we now have transitioned to being business partners. But he had an Airbnb business where he was just sustaining himself from it. And he was like, "Oh, you have a good job." This was like 2021 before real estate was what it is now. But he was like, "Well, you have a stable job, you have money saved up, you set yourself up, you have like good credit, like you could buy a property." And what we ended up doing is buying a property that we fixed up and he helped me put money to renovate it and I bought the home myself and we lived in the home for a little bit as I enjoyed living my first time home owner life. But through all of that, we decorated the place. Eventually, as this partner and I parted ways, this property eventually turned into an Airbnb property. And that ended up being my transition to entrepreneurship because my dream was always to have my own business. And so I was like, if I can just have my time back, if this property generates some income that can pay my rent, that is enough for me to have time. And when I had time, this was around 2022 ish, or sorry, 2023, that I was like, I'm ready to um, just build my business again, but I'm gonna do it with mentorship. And that's when I got coaching, and that's when I learned that personal branding is so important and leading with your stories, what builds trust with people. That really what I'm selling is visibility and transformation and a new identity. And I do it through photos and videos. But really, when I talk about branding, is like anyway, it's a bigger transformation that we're
It
offering
really is
people.
an awakening. That's how I see your work. You also give permission to entrepreneurs to be who they are because oftentimes we feel that we have to look a certain way, speak a certain way. And there is a lot of copy and paste when it comes to online business. And what I see as someone who follows you is you tell people to be the opposite, right? And not that you're telling them be this way, but you give them permission through the lens and through the videos that you do of not continue to be another money coach, another health coach, another business coach. And that's really what I love about the work that you do. So I want to share a fun fact with you. I was a photographer when I was in college. On the weekends, I was also shooting weddings. Don't ask me how or anything related to the settings on a camera, but I was doing that because I just needed money for books. And so I ended up doing weddings and I think I was charging $500 for all day long weddings.
Yeah.
And I learned that that was a lot of work. And so photography is not for me, but I do like to get my photos taken. So I just thought I'd share that with you. We have something in common. Now, thank you so much for sharing that. You share so much, and I'm just like, I want to ask you so much more in terms of your personal story because visibility and identity is something that people oftentimes don't realize that is so important. And so let's talk about branding and how has that helped you in terms of launching your own personal brand? Because a lot of times people think the brand is the color, the logo, the website. And so when did you realize that it wasn't those specific elements and then transition into it's about mindset, visibility, and of course, identity?
Yeah. I love that question. I used to think entrepreneurship was the same mindset that I had with my sales job of selling another person's product and like decentering myself altogether. I used to think that that was the mentality that I needed to approach entrepreneurship. And turns out that it was a complete opposite. It was like when I'm the product, it's my story and uh, to me, what shifted things for me was actually going through like a formal brand strategy process. A lot of people out there say you gotta wait until you make X amount of money to like get your branding done. But in my experience, actually having branding, like yes, design work, but a brand strategy process, that's what shifted things for me that I was like, oh, branding is really tapping into these non-negotiable beliefs that I have that sure, I could shoot fashion and I could shoot weddings and families, but when I think of like what keeps me up at night is lack of representation. It's the fact that I wasn't introduced to a Latina business coach until later on, where there are people that see themselves represented way, way earlier in life. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I was like, what? I can have leadership that relates to me and my lived experience. And so that was a very strong foundation that truly has that's what I mean by like my business skyrocketed is once I realized that I'm like, oh, I'm tapping into like a deep problem we have in our society, which is lack of representation and lack of safety for people of non-traditional or like marginalized identities feeling safe being seen in the business space and social media in like really nice, beautiful places. So
I love that. So, how do you help your clients with what you just shared? Because you've done the work for you and your brand, but how do you help a client go from I don't feel ready, maybe I don't look a certain way? Can you walk us through like behind the scenes? How does the process looks like for you as a creative?
yeah. Ready is a mentality. Being ready is self-acceptance. And it's when I take people through my process, it's a lot of inquiry. Like I actually ask a ton of questions. I definitely am not a person that comes in with the agenda of this is what we're gonna do. I do that once I ask the person a lot of questions of what their goals are and also like what what pisses you off about the world or like what's or, like, even if I notice, like, stories and I'm like, "Oh, this is really powerful." Like, asking them, like, kinda like what is, like, a common issue that, like, their clients are dealing with, and I try to pair up stories that are relevant to what their clients are struggling with because through my branding process with the photos and the videos, storytelling is the core of it, and storytelling is how we connect and build trust we want to pull out is like what are the relevant stories and it's a vulnerable process and so once people realize that it's more of an energetic being ready less about losing weight or having the perfect outfit or the perfect set it's mostly about what what trust gaps does your business have and how you're connecting with your people and that's what we're doing through this process of the photos and the videos.
I love that. Now, at the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned that you are essentially now in Utah, but you also go to Arizona. So, how does someone that is so creative, and I know you carry like big equipment with you as well, wherever you go. So, how do you plan for those seasons of entrepreneurship where you have to be moving to go take photos? Like, what goes behind the scenes in terms of cash flow, in terms of preparation, in terms of like mindset, because you really are everywhere.
Yeah, yes, I have been traveling a lot. I sometimes forget just the places this work has taken me, but to answer your question, I'm very minimal in the way that I travel, where I found a way to travel with like my lighting and with my both photo video camera where I don't have to rent equipment very much. I will say travel does take a toll on me that I just charge a travel fee. That's just a just for, like, my own mental health and also giving my time dedicated to one client. I have a travel fee that's included for any out of state shoots and things like that. But besides that, I try to be I hope that answers your question. Being very minimal and just mindful of my capacity to be able to be present with the client and also not resent travel, but just remember that I'm being properly compensated for the extra work and logistics that goes into bringing an entire set somewhere else.
I love that. And I don't think I've had any guests that talk about the travel fee or the additional fees associated with your services. I charge for that whenever I go speak or people fly me out. In fact, I even bring my assistant with me now because I'm like, I need that person. And
Yeah.
as much as I like to go and speak in front of an audience, I also don't like traveling because I am a mom and my girls are
Mm.
7 and 5. And so there's also the missing part of like, oh man, I'm not gonna put them out to bed tonight and they're kind of small. So I would say it's not an excuse, but I do want to be with my family when they go to bed because nos ponemos a leer cuentos and we like to read stories and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So I love
Especially
it.
those years that you're not gonna get back, that I can see how yeah, I have had to learn to factor in just like it's very different to drive 30 minutes to a shoot and come back home than like completely find someone to watch my dogs. And also I've been experiencing a lot of anxiety and like claustrophobia when I travel, where I get like kind of panicky. So I've been accounting for all of these stressors that get in the way of me performing at my best. So I even scheduled time to come in, arrive a day earlier, have time to ground myself, set myself, and really that way I can show up to the project or the shoot present. So yeah.
And I love that because not everyone does that, right? But it takes practice. It takes also the right clients to hire you for you to realize that, oh my God, I can actually take 24 hours before I have to perform, right? And for you, performing is shooting or doing the videos, and for everyone is different. But I'm like, this is so good. Now,
Mhm.
you as a someone who works with creatives on personal branding, I hear a lot of noise about SEO and make sure everything is SEO, and I'm almost sick of it. Because what I see is that you lean more into authenticity and the storytelling portion that you were sharing with us. What were
Yeah.
some of the biggest myths when it comes to branding that you're like, don't do that?
Yeah, definitely prior I mean, I get SEO is like SEO is just like a tactic. I mean, it's a tactic, but tactics come secondary to you being in the identity of the person that builds trust because when you are more focused on your being, on being a person that's calm, relaxed, that believes that people want to hear from me, what I have to say is valuable. When you truly feel and believe that, that is like 80% of the trust building process that like it's shown in the video photos and the videos where I don't I hardly pay attention to like SEO. Maybe like a little bit on like my Instagram bio and like my website, but it is very secondary to me being the person that's engaged, that when people even come across my photos or my content, I'm interested in people feeling my heart and my spirit because that is what builds trust. And that's what builds trust even in a conversation or when you're at a networking event. And I think a big misconception is people thinking that a brand is looking outside before looking inwards first, which it is important to look outside and seeing your competitors and seeing how you're different, but I still believe that that is a secondary step to first asking yourself, where's your being? And also, like, what world do you want to create? What demands to be expressed? And then we'll look at the market, what people are saying, what your clients are saying, and so on and so forth.
I love that. As you were speaking, another question came to mind. I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of spicy right now. But we are
Yes.
seeing a lot of marginalized communities being attacked right now. And there might be a listener that has been thinking about personal branding, but maybe they don't feel safe right now. What would you say to that person?
Yeah. I would say I actually have had and I experienced this myself because I think when you're a marginalized person, and even like myself talking about racism, sexism, and things like that, there's definitely, I've had to grow into finding comfort with that. But I will say, I've had to just create boundaries around my consumption of posting something on social and then staying there like, oh my God, did anyone validate this and that? So, and the reason why I say boundaries around that is because you could just post something and also just like turn off your phone and go be with your family and remember that the virtual world is not your whole life. Your life is like your relationship with yourself, with God, if you believe in God, your relationship with your family. That needs to be get the biggest part of your support system, and whatever output is online, that is secondary. And the other thing is that we're trying to think because like feeling safe, being visible, there's so many. There's also the layer that I have had clients that say like, oh, being maybe like a Black woman. I have had like, or even with, I've heard other clients that mention like there's always the critiquing white person. And then maybe to that person, like the white person that critiques may not think it's a big deal, but there is some like historic weight and trauma that goes on to that. So at least what I try to do with clients is just validate that, you know what, as a marginalized person, there is that layer of maybe how things may feel more sensitive to you, although you have to stay so committed to your vision because there are people that like the goal of visibility is for us to find each other. Like you and I found each other. I'm so happy that I found another Latina talking about money. You have to remember that your people are out there and you also will grow resilience. Don't underestimate the power of the resilience and the person you become because all of this is a reflection of how comfortable are you taking up space. And you don't have to be intense with it, just like gradually. I also believe in the resilience of our communities to be powerhouses in these spaces.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe in that as well. And you also said something that I was like, this is also important to mention. I always tell people you don't need to always be an extrovert or even be an extrovert to be visible because there's so many people that are the opposite and they're great thought leaders and people follow them, but they're not always the loudest and the tallest and the boldest. They're just showing up. And I love what you're saying about setting boundaries with social media. I personally like to schedule everything, or else I'm literally just on my phone and I will say,
Yeah.
holy guacamole, like I've been here for 2 hours and I didn't do anything. So I am a big fan of scheduling content and things like that. Now, Camila, I want to ask you if someone is thinking about personal branding, how much should they anticipate to invest, right? Because branding is an investment. So can you give us just like a guidelines on your lowest to your highest fee, just so people know also how much you're earning as a creative, because we like to be
Yeah.
transparent with money as well.
Yeah. So I don't know about other people's services. I'll speak for myself. So when I first invested in, I did branding, I did design. So I did brand strategy, which to people that don't know what brand strategy is, strategy is getting clear on who it is that you're serving, fundamentals of who you're serving, your values, your brand personality. It's not design work. Some people will think that brand strategy is like logos and design, and it's not. It's fundamental, kind of like coaching of like what it is that you're going to say, who you're serving, things like that. So I paid for brand strategy, design work, and a website, and that was a total of 7K about. And this was over the period from like September all the way to like February that I worked with this person. So that's how much I paid when I first started. And then as far as like my actual services, I have I offer that sweet spot, and that one is 3K. So that one is for the person that they already know their brand. They're more seasoned in business. They don't need a lot of strategy work or marketing help to come up with like what they're going to say on video. These are people that are already very comfortable. They just need like a refresh of brand photos and images. And then I have industry outlier, which that one is 6K. And that one is where you are getting more in-depth brand strategy help. That's when it's designed for the person who wants more sharpening with their voice. And it's also the process that I went through that really sets you up to be clear on what your point of view is going to be with your brand. And then you also get photos and videos, and you also get significantly more photos and videos to be stacked with a bank of content over a period of time. And then if somebody just wants just like a small shoe is usually for like a side hustler person that they don't want to be super visible and like they just want nice photos. Then I have my a la carte photo shoot, which is just a simple 2 hour brand shoot.
I love that. I want to ask you, how did you come up with the name Industry Outliners? Because I think that is pretty creative and pretty bold.
Yeah. Thank you. It came from my own self examination because I used to sell just deliverables, just like brand and photos and videos, but I realized that my work was a lot deeper than that. And so I just started thinking of myself. I was going to name it Anomaly for a second because I just feel like that's how I've been my whole life. I've been like, a lot of people question whether I'm Latina or not, and that's something that I've always felt like different in that way. I'm also a person that I've been super creative and intuitive, and I'm also not a person that had like this really big corporate background that I left like to me, I've been a kind of like a nomad and a spiritual creative for the majority of my life. And I always felt like just even my aesthetic, like the way that I did everything, the way that I spoke, the music that I listened to, my aesthetic, my work, it always felt just so, and that's what people reflect back to me. Like it was just different than anybody else, or how people can pick out my work from other people's. And also, when I think of these statistics of what a Latina is supposed to be, that's a college dropout, that is a first gen. If you look at the statistics, it's not like we are like, or like even when it comes to building wealth or like getting funding, it's like, the stats aren't always in our favor. So I just think of like an outlier, like it's like you're just the one that made it be besides the odds.
I
Is
love
that
that.
how you say it? Like yeah, like you made it and you made it work. And the other thing too is that in my industry, I have built my business in a very non-traditional way. Like I don't shoot weddings, I don't cold pitch. I do mostly social media marketing. Like I said, I don't focus that much on SEO. I just led with my story because I wanted to build a business my way. And also doing the photos and the videos in my way. I'm like, I hardly see anybody that's doing it to the degree and the depth that I'm doing it. And also from the work that I create with clients, it's like you guys are outliers too. Owning your individuality so deeply is what cuts through the noise. It's what's gonna make what you wouldn't work, is what you make it work. The more that you are just so in your own world, and yeah, that's how the name came through. And some of the feedback that I've gotten is that people like that the name isn't being a disruptor or like a powerhouse, even though I do hear that in women's spaces and that's exciting. But this isn't about rebelling towards anything. This is simply about being so yourself that you can't help but like just stand out and grow and make it, even if the odds are against you.
Yeah. And I love the name personally because it really, like, in terms of my own personal journey, it really reflects that everything that I had to overcome to be where I am today. And I'm just getting started. Like, I'm not even done. And so when I heard
Yeah.
the offer name, I think that's when I was like, I have to invite her to the podcast because I want to know more about it. And I love the work that you do and your work. This is from a consumer point of view, like, also
Yeah.
inspires a lot of people to think about really deep questions that sometimes people don't want to get there, right? And I said, well, I have to bring her to the podcast because this is so good. Now, what's next for you, Camila? What is a goal that you have in terms of like your finances, your wealth? What is next for you?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I definitely want to actually, I would say I always want to grow my revenue. Like, let's come the hell on. Like, that's what we're here. So, definitely want to more peacefully grow my revenue in my business. And I invested in real estate and I have my Airbnb property, but I actually want to get a lot better at investing in the stock market. I had um, something that I heard was like, real estate is a job. I think it was Gina Knox that said this, but that really stuck with me. She's like, investing in the stock market is just pressing buttons. And that really stood out with me because now, after investing in real estate and the responsibility that comes with it, and even if I don't want to invest in real estate anymore, I'm going to have to, there's like capital gains taxes and all these other fees that are involved that takes away from like the making your money back. And so I
Yeah.
actually just want to, I want to get better at investing my money and stabilizing myself as an entrepreneur a little more and continuing to invest in my education. That's something that, oh my gosh, one of like the most powerful things any woman can do is getting an education on money, mindset, identity, nervous system, all the things, and is what's going to
Yes.
give me like a biggest return.
Yeah, I love that. And, as far as like what is best, the stock market or real estate, I always say both because I do both too. Obviously, with Say Hola Wealth, I promote a stock market investing because that's what I did first. That's what I love. And that's really what builds passive income. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing real estate, that it's never an option because it becomes a strategy for tax purposes and as well as
Mhm.
like generational wealth. Like I don't think there's any investor that says, I've only invested in the stock market and they're already putting their feet up. Like, you have to do a little bit of everything.
Mhm,
I personally also love commercial real estate because that's a no-brainer for me. And I also do that one. But
mhm,
I talk about stock market investing because that's where the true disruption happens, because the decisions that are made at the top that are affecting the bottom, the marginalized community, are also a strategy for the stock market. And so if we want to be
mhm.
represented, we have to invest in the stock market. And for me, it's not so much about let's become a millionaire through the stock market, is let's invest in something that historically we were always being excluded. And that's why I teach stock market investing, because it's kind of like, haha, you don't want me to know this? Let me show you. So that's why I
Yeah,
do it. Now,
I
Camila,
love that you do this work.
where can people find you and talk about your offers so people can follow you and, of course, connect with you for branding?
Yeah, thank you. So people can connect with me on Instagram. That's the platform I'm active the most, which is Camila, CAMILLACCT or underscore CCT. And that's my Instagram. And then my website is mariacamilafoto.me. I'm sure that will be linked somewhere or tagged somewhere. And then I have two offers that I would say are the most useful to people. So I have my offer Sweet Spot. Sweet Spot is for anybody that has like a trust gap in their business. So if like maybe their thought leadership needs to show more, or like maybe the host and breath work or things like that, and they just need content that really gives people like an experience of what it's like to be in their world. So that would be Sweet Spot. It's a smaller shoot. You get photos and videos with that. Or if the person's looking for a library of content, they're also looking for more in depth help on their voice. And that's what Industry Outliers for. And that's where people receive, or if you're a wellness brand too, I've been working a lot with brick and mortar businesses where you really need to see, like, for instance, if somebody does lymphatic drainage, we really need to see what it's like to be in your world. What's the technique that you use? And we want to do it in a way where it really helps the brand really stand out and have a signature look to their customers. So that's when Industry Outlier is a great offer for people to really show the visibility and the leadership of the founder, as well as the people receive a library of photos and B-roll clips that gives demonstrations of what it's like to be in their world to continue to build on that trust. So those are my two main offers, and I take anybody nationwide. Travel's available, even though I'm located in Scottsdale, Arizona. And yeah, they're the two
Yeah,
ways.
thank
Oh,
you
and
for
then
sharing that. And I do want to say, if you don't follow her and don't follow her work, you have to. This is how I was able to connect with her. And I really enjoy when I scroll on social media and I intentionally like go on your page and I'm like, okay, let's see what she has now. And that also
oh
shows the power of branding and the power of visibility and the power of investing in coaching and investing in anything that is going to save you time. So, Camila, thank you so much for coming to the show, and let's go ahead and build wealth juntas.
yeah, thank you so much for having me.